Hello there, and welcome to Whispers to Sleep. My name is David, and I'm truly honored to be your guide tonight. Here we believe sleep is not just a routine. It's a gentle journey, a quiet return to peace every night. I craft stories with care, so your mind can rest and your body can soften all you need to do. Take a slow deep breath in, and as you breathe out, allow the day to melt away. Close your eyes. Get cozy under the covers and let my voice lead you into calm, into comfort, into dreams. This is your time. Your memento. Truly relax. Let's begin. You wake, not to the warmth of morning, but to a strange, muted glow. The world feels as though it has been draped in a heavy curtain, the sun dimmed to a pale disk in the sky. It is neither day nor night, but something in between, a twilight that lingers and refuses to leave. You breathe in the air. It is cool, sharp, and thin, and you can almost taste the faint dust that hangs unseen. You rub your eyes, but the haze remains. This is no dream. You are standing in the year 536, a year that history will later call the worst of all years to be alive. Yet here, in this moment, it is simply quiet. Above you, the sun flickers weakly, as though someone has taken a brush and painted a gray wash across the sky. Scientists, centuries later, will learn that this dimness was caused by ash and aerosols, thrown high into the stratosphere by a massive volcanic eruption. Some say it came from Iceland, others from far-off lands, a single breath from the earth that wrapped the planet in shadow. But you don't need the explanation. You feel it. The sky is a living thing, and it is holding its breath. You walk through a small field where grass bends under a thin layer of frost, though it is not winter. Your fingers trace the edges of the blades, and you can feel how fragile they have become in this hungry light. Normally, the sun is the planet's clock. Its steady rise and fall tells life when to grow, when to rest. But now, with the sun veiled, the earth seems confused, as though it too is drifting in a half-dream. The villagers you pass move slowly, their faces pale in the dim glow. They glance upward often, as if hoping the sun might suddenly find its strength again. But it doesn't. Not today. Not tomorrow. For months, even years, this muted light will linger. You pause at a riverbank and watch the water. Even it seems slower, carrying the weight of the sky in its mirrored surface. The reflection is not gold or blue, but silver gray, a quiet, ghostly light that feels more like memory than presence. Scientists will later call this phenomenon volcanic winter, when dust and sulfur particles scatter sunlight away, cooling the earth. But to you standing here, it is not a phenomenon. It is a feeling. It is as if the sun has gone to sleep, and the world must learn how to dream without it. And yet, even in this half-light, there is beauty. The edges of the horizon blur into soft gradients, and shadows stretch longer, gentler, as if they too have grown tired of sharpness. A bird takes flight above you, its wings gliding effortlessly through the heavy sky. For a moment, you watch it and wonder if it knows something you don't, if perhaps this muted world has its own quiet rhythm. You step further into the village. Fires burn in the hearths, their orange glow sharp against the cold gray air. People huddle close, trading warmth, and in their stillness, you see a kind of unspoken unity. The sun may have faded, but it has pulled them closer to one another. There is comfort here, like the small, steady hum of a heartbeat in the silence. You remember what you once read about light, how every beam from the sun travels across 93 million miles to reach your skin. Even now, when the sky is veiled, those beams still come. They are simply scattered, softened, slowed. It is not that the sun is gone. It is only resting behind a curtain of ash, waiting for the wind to change. This thought stays with you as you wander toward the edge of the fields. where the horizon meets the sky in a haze, so thick it is almost indistinguishable. You imagine the invisible particles up there, sulfur and ash, drifting high above the clouds, turning sunlight into shadow. You imagine how they linger, how they bend the world's warmth into something thin and distant. And as you imagine, you begin to understand something quietly profound. Darkness is not the absence of light. It is what happens when light takes the long way around. You close your eyes and feel the cool air brushing against your skin. The earth feels slower here, as though it is teaching you to match its pace, to walk without rushing, to breathe without urgency, to simply exist in this muted in-between. The villagers call it a curse, this endless dimness. But standing here, you find yourself thinking of it as a kind of pause. A long, slow inhale before the world exhales again. There is sorrow, yes. Crops will fail. Hunger will follow. But there is also a strange, meditative stillness that only comes when the sun fades and the sky asks you to listen. You turn your gaze upward one last time, toward that pale, shadowed sun, and you wonder what it would be like to wait for its return, not for hours or days, but for seasons. To measure hope not in minutes, but in the quiet persistence of survival. Because in this year, the worst year the world has known, there is still one truth that no shadow can erase. The sun, though hidden, is still there. And perhaps that is why, as night begins to creep over this dim day, you don't feel fear. You feel curiosity. What else will this quiet, muted world teach you? The air grows colder, and you pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders. Somewhere in the distance, a low wind stirs, carrying with it the scent of smoke and frost. The fires burn on, their glow steady against the gray. You take one slow breath, then another, letting the stillness seep in. And as you step further into this twilight world, you begin to sense something else, something waiting just beyond the horizon. A sky, heavy with ash. A silence that almost feels alive. And the faint, unshakable question that will follow you into the next chapter. If the sun can fade, you lift your gaze to the sky, and it no longer feels infinite. It has weight now, a gray shroud stretched from horizon to horizon. The clouds are not clouds at all, but ash, fine as silk, scattered so high above that they never fall. They linger like a memory, hiding the sun, quieting the blue. You breathe in, and the air tastes faintly of stone, sharp and metallic at the edges. Somewhere far away, a mountain once tore itself apart. Its roar was carried across oceans and continents until it settled here, above you, in this strange half-light. You cannot hear the eruption now, but the silence it left behind is louder than thunder. The world beneath this sky has grown softer. The sounds of daily life are muffled, as though the ash has swallowed them too. Even the wind seems careful not to stir too much, as if it might disturb the veil above. You walk slowly, your footsteps quiet on the cold earth. Around you, the trees hold still. Their branches are bare, not from winter, but from exhaustion. Leaves that should have unfurled in spring have hesitated, confused by this sunless season. You run your fingertips along the bark of one trunk. It is cool, rough, patient. Nature is waiting, as if it knows this shadow will pass, even if it takes years. Scientists will one day explain how this happened. They will tell you that when a volcano erupts with such force, it sends sulfur and ash high into the stratosphere, far above the reach of rain. There, these particles form a thin mirror, scattering sunlight back into space. It is not darkness, exactly, but a thinning of the world's warmth. A breath held too long. You pause and close your eyes. In this dim world, you feel the quiet differently. It is not empty. It is full. Full of the hum of the earth beneath your feet, of the air brushing your skin, of the faint, patient rustle of life enduring the slow cold. When you open your eyes again, you notice how even the animals move differently. A bird perches on a branch, feathers puffed against the chill. It does not sing, it only watches, as if sound itself has become precious. Somewhere in the distance, a fox moves through the ash-dimmed grass, its steps cautious, unhurried. Life has not stopped. It has simply lowered its voice. You keep walking, and your breath clouds in front of you, a pale ghost against the gray. You remember how, in brighter times, the sun stitched color into everything, into the green of leaves, the blue of rivers, the gold of fields. But now, the world has been washed in silver. It is strange, yes, but it is also beautiful in its own quiet way. The ash above you turns every sunrise and sunset into something otherworldly. Instead of gold, the horizon glows red, deep and smoldering, as if the sky itself remembers the fire that caused it. You watch it for a long time, the way one might watch a candle flicker in a dark room dot, and as you watch, you begin to understand how the earth holds its memories. Every particle of ash is a story carried from a distant mountain, suspended between you and the sun. They travel together, unseen rivers of dust drifting high above, painting the world in shadow. You tilt your head back and imagine them, billions of tiny fragments, weightless and silent, tracing invisible paths across the stratosphere. They will stay there for months, even years, until they slowly settle back to the earth. But for now, they keep the sky dim, turning the day into an endless hush. You wonder how it must feel to be a farmer in this year, to look at your fields and see sprouts struggling under the pale sun, to wonder if they will grow enough, if your family will eat enough. This is not just silence. It is a silence that presses on every living thing, asking for endurance. And yet there is also something strangely tender about it. The earth has slowed. Even time seems to move differently here, stretched out like the dim light across the sky. You find yourself walking more slowly, breathing more deeply, as though your body is learning to match the pace of this shadowed year. You stop and look once more at the horizon. The ash does not frighten you. If anything, it feels ancient. A reminder that the earth is vast, and you are walking on a living planet that sometimes exhales in ways too large to imagine. The villagers you passed earlier light their fires now. From a distance, you see their smoke rising to meet the ash-filled sky, two worlds of gray touching. It is strangely comforting, this meeting of fire and shadow, as though even in this dimmest age, warmth finds a way to climb upward. You take another breath. The air is cool, quiet, heavy, but it is also steady. The earth has not stopped turning. The sun, though hidden, is still burning. The sky is only resting, wrapped in its ashen quilt dot, and in this slow, muted world. You feel something stir inside you, the sense that silence is not an end, but an invitation. Because even as the ash lingers above you, you begin to wonder what happens when it finally clears. What new colors will the sky hold then? You wake to a world of frost. Your breath escapes in pale ribbons, curling like whispers in the air, before vanishing into the dim sky. Each step you take crunches softly against frozen earth, a sound that echoes across a land muted by cold. You feel it not only in your skin, but in your bones. The slow, steady quiet of a planet caught in a winter that does not want to end out. This is not a normal season. It is not the kind of cold that comes and goes, carried by the calendar. No, this is different. An unbroken hush, born from the ash that lingers high above, scattering sunlight into nothingness. The warmth that should have kissed the ground never arrives. The sun rises, but its light feels weak, as though it has grown tired on its way down from the sky. You imagine the earth from above. Clouds of volcanic dust still wrap it like a pale veil. From that height, you see no spring, No summer, only a vast gray quiet. And below, rivers slow, forests hesitate, and the breath of the world becomes shallow. Cautious, you pull your coat tighter, though you know it is not just the air that is cold. It is history itself. The year 536 has been called the worst year to be alive, and now you understand why. Even the wind has changed. It slides through the trees like a careful visitor, never staying long enough to stir what little warmth remains. The fields are bare, their soil hardened by frost. Farmers' hands, cracked and pale, work the earth despite its stubborn stillness. They plant seeds with hope, but hope here feels more like endurance than certainty. Scientists will one day study this time and call it a volcanic winter. They will explain how particles high in the stratosphere deflected sunlight, cooling the planet by several degrees. A few degrees, such a small thing when spoken aloud. And yet, you can feel how those few degrees press down on every living thing, bending it toward survival. You walk past a frozen river. Its surface gleams under the weak light, an unbroken mirror stretching toward the horizon. You run a hand over the ice and feel its silence. Even water, the restless wanderer of the earth, has stilled. Beneath the surface, fish move slowly. There, bodies conserving energy, as if time itself has learned to wait. You find yourself wondering about the people who lived in this age. How did they endure this endless chill? They did not have the science to name it, nor the words to explain it. All they knew was the feeling. The sky dim, the fields barren, the days blurred together in a gray procession of cold dot, and yet they endured. You imagine the small fires that must have burned in their homes, flickering against walls of stone and wood. The way families must have huddled close, their hands outstretched, not just for heat, but for comfort. Cold like this does not only test the body, it tests the heart. It asks you to believe in warmth, even when you cannot feel it. You pause and breathe in the thin air. It smells of snow and wood smoke, the scent of a world learning to move slowly. Your exhale fogs the air, and for a moment, you imagine it as a thread, tying you to the countless others who once stood in this very cold, breathing the same pale air, waiting for the sun to return. The quiet stretches around you, and you realize that in this stillness there is also a kind of beauty. The cold paints the world in sharp, delicate lines, frost clinging to every branch, every blade of grass, turning them into sculptures of glass. The rivers, the fields, the sky itself, they have been stripped down to their simplest shapes. As though the world has been reduced to its bare bones, you tilt your head back, staring at the muted heavens. You know that above those clouds of ash, the sun still burns unchanged. It is strange, you think, how something so constant can feel so far away, and then you remember what scientists will someday say. This cold is only part of a cycle, a response, a temporary shift in the endless rhythm of Earth. The planet has been here before. It will be here again. Just as seasons follow one another, so too will this winter end. But for now, it lingers. You walk further, past a cluster of huts where smoke curls from chimneys into the ash-gray sky. A child steps outside, wrapped in layers of wool, her cheeks flushed pink from the cold. She laughs, a small, bright sound, and for a moment, it cuts through the hush like sunlight, breaking through clouds. It is in that sound that you realize something important. Even in the longest winters, life finds ways to stay warm. Smile, and as you continue on, the snow crunches beneath your feet in a slow rhythm, steady and patient. You feel it now, the lesson this winter carries. Endurance is not silent suffering. It is a quiet trust that warmth will return, that seasons will turn, even if you cannot yet feel their change. The wind brushes your cheek like a ghost of spring, faint but not gone. You breathe it in and imagine what it will feel like, months or years from now. when the ash finally falls away, and the sun finds you again. And in that thought there is comfort, because even as this winter stretches on, the earth is already turning slowly, inevitably, toward what comes next. You pause once more, your eyes fixed on the pale horizon. Somewhere beyond it, hidden but certain, a new season is waiting. And as you take one last breath of this quiet cold, you cannot help but wonder, what will it sound like when the first thaw begins? The land before you is empty. Where wheat once danced in the wind, there is only stillness. The soil is hard, its color pale beneath the dim sun, as if the world itself has been drained of its strength. You pause, listening, but there is no rustle of crops, no hum of summer insects, no laughter from the fields. Only silence. It is a silence that weighs heavy, like a curtain pulled across the earth. You can almost hear the hunger in it, not loud, but patient, gnawing at the edges of everything. You step forward, and the ground crunches beneath your boots. In this winter without end, famine has taken root as deeply as any plant ever could. Crops have failed. Rivers run low. What little remains is gathered and shared with hands that tremble, not from the cold this time, but from the quiet ache of empty stomachs. And yet, the people endure. You see them, faces lined with exhaustion, but also with something else, something you can't quite name. A mother kneels by a small fire, cradling a bowl of thin broth. She offers it to her child first. Her hands shake, but her voice is steady, soft, as though warmth can be carried in words when it can no longer be found in the air. Nearby, an old man sharpens a wooden tool. His clothes are threadbare, his frame slight, but in his eyes there is a stubbornness that even the cold cannot touch. Hunger has carved him down to something unbreakable. Scientists, in another time, will call this the late antique Little Ice Age. They will measure how the sun's dimming, the ash-filled sky, and the volcanic haze led to years of failed harvests. They will chart the decline of agriculture in neat lines and careful numbers. But here, in this moment, you don't need charts. You can see it. You can feel it. You walk past what used to be a granary. Its doors hang open, empty. A thin layer of dust clings to the floor where grain should be. You touch the wood, and it feels cold, as if it remembers abundance the way a dream remembers warmth. And still, even here, hope lingers. You watch as a child digs into the frozen ground, planting seeds with fingers red from the chill. There is no promise those seeds will grow, but he plants them anyway. His father kneels beside him, patting the soil down gently, almost reverently, as though each seed is not just food, but a prayer. Because hunger teaches you this: hope is not loud. It is not a grand gesture. It is quiet, steady, and stubborn. It is the act of placing one small seed in a field that looks dead, and believing, truly believing, that one day green will return. Your breath fogs in the air as you watch them. It reminds you of something scientists will one day learn. The human body can endure longer than the mind sometimes believes. That even when the world grows thin and cold, people adapt. They share. They cling to rituals, to small acts of kindness, to whatever light they can hold in their hands. And perhaps that is why famine, harsh as it is, never completely erases hope. Because hope is born from scarcity. When there is nothing left to waste, what remains is precious. You look up at the sky. It is still gray, still heavy with the dust of distant eruptions. But now you wonder if even this sky, empty, cold, unyielding, has its purpose. Perhaps this season of hunger is not just a test. Perhaps it is a lesson. You walk further, past a village where people gather near a fire. They are thin, but their voices rise together in low, steady song. It is not joyous, not loud, but it is unbroken. The sound threads through the air like smoke, curling upward into the dim sky, defying the silence of the barren earth. And in that moment, you see it clearly. Hunger has taken much, but not everything. Because here, where the soil gives nothing, people give to each other. You pause and breathe it in. The smell of smoke, the sound of voices, the faint warmth that radiates from a shared fire. Even in famine, there is this, a fragile, unyielding proof that life continues. You step closer to the fire. A man looks up and offers you a piece of bread. It is small, hardly more than a crust. But he offers it without hesitation, and you take it, feeling the heat of it against your fingers. You eat slowly. The taste is simple, but it fills more than just your stomach. It fills something quieter, something deeper, the part of you that needed to be reminded that survival is not just about what the earth gives. It is also about what people give to each other. And so, you stand there for a moment longer, watching the glow of the firelight on tired faces. They are not smiling. They are not celebrating. But they are here. And in this endless winter, that is enough. You close your eyes, and you let the warmth of the fire linger in your mind, carrying it like an ember against the cold, because beyond this famine, beyond this season of gray, there will come a time when the fields wake again. And as the wind moves softly through the empty village, you wonder, when the first green shoots push through this frozen ground, will they carry with them the memory of every hope planted here? The air feels heavier now. You walk through narrow streets lined with shuttered doors. The quiet is different here, not just the hush of cold and famine, but something deeper, something that presses down like an unseen hand. It is the silence of sickness. You don't see it at first. Illness is like the wind, invisible but always there. It drifts through the crowded rooms where families gather for warmth. It lingers in the breath of the hungry, their bodies already weakened by months. Of poor harvests. A cough. One sound in the stillness, sharp enough to echo. Then another, and another. You follow the sound and find a village where faces are pale and drawn. The air smells faintly of smoke and herbs, the crude medicine of the time. A woman wrings out a cloth in a bowl of water and presses it against her child's forehead. Her hands are steady, but her eyes are full of worry. Scientists will one day call this the first pandemic of recorded history, the Justinian plague. They will trace it to a bacterium named Yersinia pestis, carried by fleas, riding on rats, moving silently through ports and towns. But for now, you only see its shadow, fever-warmed skin, shivering frames, and the way neighbors whisper instead of speak. And yet, even in this quiet dread, life continues. You watch as a healer mixes herbs by candlelight. She does not know the names of microbes or the secrets of immunity, but she knows the language of care. She boils water, binds wounds, and prays over each patient. Science is still centuries away from understanding why these rituals sometimes help, but hope has always been its own kind of medicine. You kneel beside a man lying on a straw mat. His breath is shallow, but steady. His body is a battleground, and deep inside him, a quiet war is being fought. You imagine it, white blood cells moving like silent sentinels, seeking out the invaders. Fever rising like a fire, burning away. The unseen. This is what the body does, even in its weakest moments. It fights. It remembers. Your breath slows as you picture it, and you realize something profound. The human body is not fragile. It is patient. It has been here for thousands of years, learning every trick it needs to survive. You step outside into the dim gray light. Smoke from hearth fires curls into the sky, and in that haze, you can almost see it. Not the disease itself, but its trail, winding through the world like an invisible river. And still, people adapt. They avoid crowds. They boil their water. They burn sweet-smelling herbs, not knowing that some will drive away the fleas that carry death on their tiny backs. In their fear, they stumble onto survival. You walk further, past a row of houses where doors are marked with simple symbols, warnings to stay away. Yet even here, in the deepest shadow of disease, there is kindness. A loaf of bread left on a doorstep. A pitcher of water placed within reach of a trembling hand. It strikes you then, as soft and certain as the falling snow. Illness reveals not just the weakness of the world, but also its quiet strength. You linger on this thought as you move on. In the distance, a bell tolls, slow, heavy, mournful. But it does not stop the sound of children laughing faintly in one small courtyard, chasing each other in circles. Not even sickness can take everything, and perhaps that is what survival really means. Not the absence of darkness, but the persistence of light. You pause by the edge of a frozen stream. Your reflection looks back at you, pale beneath the dull sky. You think about the countless battles being fought in bodies all around you, unseen and unspoken. And you think of how many will win those battles, simply because the human body has always known how to heal. Even here, in the year 536, surrounded by famine and disease, that truth feels like a steady heartbeat beneath the silence. You breathe it in. You watch the smoke rising from the chimneys, curling upward, as if it is carrying with it the prayers of every mother and healer, every trembling hand holding hope like a candle dot, and for a moment, you believe those prayers might actually reach the sun. You step back onto the road. The air is cold, but the world is still turning. Beneath the sickness and hunger, life is not ending. It is adapting. It is waiting. It is preparing for the day when the sun will shine again. You close your eyes and listen to the faint sound of coughing, of footsteps, of wind moving through the empty branches. You stand
This
still.
is what
Dot,
survival
sounds like. There is only
Quiet,
silence,
but
unbroken, the kind that comes
and you
after
begin
famine.
to wonder,
After sickness,
if the human body
after
can
too
endure
many
this,
unanswered prayers,
what else might it be
but
capable
then
of?
slowly you begin to hear it, the steady, low hum beneath the earth, a sound so ancient and deep it almost feels like memory. The world is not quiet. It is speaking. You feel it in the ground beneath your feet, in the way the earth shifts and sighs. Long before humans learned to write, long before language was born, the planet already had a voice. And here, in the year 536, that voice is louder than ever. You look toward the mountains, their peaks hidden behind veils of ash and pale sunlight. Somewhere far away, a volcano has erupted. Its plume of dust has climbed into the sky, dimming the sun and cooling the air. You cannot see it from where you stand, but you can feel its presence, like the deep echo of a drum rolling through the bones of the world. Volcanoes are the Earth's storytellers. They speak in bursts of fire, in rivers of molten rock that carve new paths through the land. Each eruption is both destruction and creation, erasing what was and making room for what will be. You close your eyes and imagine the moment it happens. Molten rock rising, pressure building, the Earth's crust, trembling before it finally breaks. And when it does, the sky itself seems to breathe. But this language is not only violent. You kneel and press your palm to the frozen ground. Beneath the chill, you imagine the mantle, a slow-moving ocean of stone, flowing over millions of years. Its pace is so slow, so steady, it feels like the heartbeat of the planet. Every tremor, every shift of the Earth's plates is a syllable in its endless sentence. And then there is the wind. It moves through the trees in long, drawn-out breaths. It carries the taste of ash from far-off lands, a reminder of distant mountains that you will never see. The wind has always been a messenger, weaving the stories of the planet together. You follow it down to the coastline, where the sea waits in its restless rhythm. Waves rise and fall in endless conversation, speaking of the pull of the moon above. Even now, in this dim year, The tides remain faithful, the oceans bowing and returning in a dance older than history. You sit at the edge of the water and listen. Each wave seems to say, "We are still here," and you realize something that quiets the ache in your chest. Even in catastrophe, the world does not stop. It shifts. It rearranges. It keeps speaking, and if you are patient enough, you can learn to hear it. You picture the chain of events that began this year of darkness. A volcano, perhaps in Iceland or Central America, sent its ash high into the atmosphere. That ash spread across continents, wrapping the earth in a thin gray shroud. It dimmed the sun, cooled the air, and changed the rhythm of the seasons. Science will one day call this volcanic forcing, a phrase that sounds almost mechanical. But standing here, you know it is not mechanical at all. It is music. The earth hums in deep tones, slow, low, and steady. Sometimes it erupts in sharp crescendos, like thunder or fire. And sometimes it rests in long suspended notes, as if pausing between thoughts. The world is alive. And this is how it speaks. You begin to walk inland again, tracing the frozen streams that cut through the valleys. You pass stones shaped by rivers that no longer run, and hills formed by glaciers long vanished. They are words carved in the language of time. If you listen, they tell you what happened here. Long before any humans stood in this place, a valley is an old sigh. A mountain is a raised voice. A river is a sentence that never ends. And you are only one listener among billions, pausing for a moment in the middle of an endless conversation between the sky, the land, and the sea. The cold wind brushes against your face, but you no longer feel afraid of it. Instead, you feel small in a way that is comforting, like standing at the edge of an ocean and knowing it will still be there long after you are gone. This is what the earth is teaching you now, that it is vast enough to hold every disaster, every eruption, every famine, and every recovery. It has done this for millions of years. It will do it for millions more. You stand quietly, the hum beneath your feet steady and sure. The year 536 feels heavy with darkness, but the language of the earth is steady and unbroken. You close your eyes once more, and in that quiet, you begin to wonder, if the earth can endure so much and still keep speaking, what will it tell you next? Perhaps you think it will speak not of fire and ash, but of something else, the fragile, stubborn light that begins to bloom even in the darkest of years. You take a breath, and the wind carries it away, as if passing it along to the world itself. The ground hums, the waves answer, the mountains hold their breath, and you listen, because sometimes the oldest stories are not written in books. They are written in stone. You step into the quiet night. The air is cold, the sky pale, and the sun, that once uncheckable guardian of daylight, has grown faint in the year of ash. But above you, past the haze and shadow, another light waits. At first, you only catch glimpses of it, a pinprick, a trembling spark, a memory of brightness. Then, as your eyes adjust to the dim world, the stars emerge, hundreds of them, then thousands. A map written not in ink, but in fire. You tilt your head back and breathe. Slowly. Here, in the silence of this strange, dark year, the stars are no longer hidden. They feel closer now, as if the darkness has drawn back a curtain that had always been there. You wonder if this is how the ancients once saw them, before lanterns and cities, before the earth drowned itself in its own light. The stars ruled the Chung sky. Mariners steered their ships by them. Nomads crossed endless deserts, reading constellations as if they were sentences. Kings and farmers alike lifted their eyes and felt the same quiet awe you feel now. And you, standing here centuries later, feel as if time has folded, placing you in their company. Above you, Orion stretches his bow. Cassiopeia leans back in her chair of stars. The North Star holds steady, faithful as ever. Even through the thin veil of ash that dims the horizon, they shine like thoughts that refuse to be forgotten. The earth may be in shadow, but the heavens are still alight. You lie down on the cold ground, hands folded over your chest, and let the sky fill your vision. Each star is a sun, burning so far away that its light has traveled for centuries to find you. Some of the stars you see tonight are long dead, their fire extinguished before you were ever born, yet their light keeps arriving, patient and unhurried. You think of it like this: when you look at the stars, you are looking backward in time. You are seeing the echoes of what once was, frozen into beams of light that cross the distance between ages. And somehow, that thought is comforting. The earth feels fragile right now. Famine and cold grip its surface, and sickness drifts like unseen mist. But above you, the universe carries on, unchanged, its rhythm older and grander than the troubles of any single year. You focus on one star, bright, unwavering, and imagine its story. It was born in a cradle of gas and dust, collapsing under its own gravity until its core ignited. For millions, even billions of years, it has burned with quiet determination, throwing light across the dark. And here you are, a fleeting visitor. In the span of its life, catching only a single moment of its endless journey, you think of the people who once lived under skies even darker than this one, who gave these stars names, shaped them into stories, and used them as guides. They could not have known the science, the fusion, the gravity, the physics that makes each point of light burn, but they understood something deeper, that the stars were steady when nothing else was. And in this dim year, you understand. It too. Your breath forms a pale cloud above you. The wind rustles through the frozen grass. Yet the stars do not move, not in any way you can see. They wait, silent and constant, as if reminding you that even in the longest winter, there are lights that never go out. You imagine how this sky must have felt to the lost and wandering. A traveler in the dark, stepping from one horizon to another, might have looked up and found the North Star, steady and unwavering, and felt something shift inside, the quiet reassurance that the universe has an order, even when the earth below seems broken. And as you gaze at it now, you feel the same. There is a science to all of this, of course. You know that starlight is simply energy crossing space, that constellations are illusions of perspective. But in this moment, science and wonder feel like the same thing, because knowledge does not make the stars less magical. It only deepens their mystery. You trace the constellations one by one, whispering their names to yourself like old poems. Lyra, with its single bright jewel. Andromeda, stretching toward a galaxy you cannot see with your eyes. Ursa Major, its great arc pointing the way to Polaris. The more you look, the more you feel it, a stillness. As if the sky is holding you in its gaze. The world below may tremble with hunger and cold, but above, there is something eternal. You close your eyes for a moment and picture yourself floating upward, past the ash, past the thin veil of atmosphere, until the earth falls away beneath you, and only the stars remain. In that silence, you feel small, but not in a frightening way. Small, the way a single note is small within a song, and in that thought, there is peace. You open your eyes again. The stars have not changed. They will be there tomorrow, and the day after that, and in every winter to come, whether the sun shines bright or fades again. You breathe out slowly, letting the cold air settle in your lungs. For a long while, you do nothing but watch the sky, letting the quiet of it seep into you like sleep. And then, softly, a question forms in your mind. If the stars above can endure for millions of years, what other secrets of time and endurance wait in the shadows of this world? You turn your gaze from the heavens back to the horizon. where the faint outline of mountains rises like sleeping giants. And you know that somewhere, deep within those stones, the next story is waiting. You walk through a city that no longer remembers its own name. Its walls are cracked, its streets quiet, and the wind carries only the faint echo of voices that once filled the air with pride. There are no soldiers here, no kings or councils. Only silence, the kind that settles when something once mighty has grown too heavy to stand. And yet, this silence does not feel empty. It feels patient. You pass an archway carved with symbols no one alive can read. Moss creeps over its edges, softening the stone as if time itself has laid a gentle hand upon it. You wonder about the people who once walked here, how certain they must have been that their world would last forever. But history, like the seasons, is never still. Empires, you realize, are like tides. They rise, vast and unstoppable, gathering strength until they reach their highest point. But then, as quietly as the moonlight shifting over the sea, they begin to recede, not because of anger or punishment, but because every force in nature moves in cycles, even human. Ambition. You breathe in the cold air and let this truth settle over you. In the age of volcanic ash and dim skies, even the greatest cities faltered. Grain stores emptied. Trade roads grew silent. Thrones became lonely chairs in forgotten halls. The earth itself, with its long shadow of winter, seemed to remind humanity that it was never truly in control. But even here, in these broken places, there is no final ending. You see it in the way weeds push through cracks in the stones, their green stems stubborn and alive. You hear it in the rustle of a single bird's wings overhead, cutting across the quiet like a promise. Civilizations may fall asleep, but life does not. You pause at the edge of a crumbled courtyard where the remains of a fountain still stand. Once it must have been beautiful. Water sparkling in the sun, children laughing as they chased each other in circles. Now it is only stone, dry and hollow. Yet, if you listen closely, you can almost hear it. Not the fountain's water, but the memory of movement. You imagine the sound lingering, like a faint echo carried across centuries. History does this sometimes. It doesn't vanish. It fades into whispers that can still be heard if you are quiet enough to listen. And as you listen, you begin to understand the science beneath this poetry. Nothing in the universe truly disappears. Matter reshapes, energy shifts form. An empire is not erased. It simply scatters into language, into stories, into the walls that crumble, and the seeds that take root. In their ruins, you walk further. The streets narrow, then open again into a wide square. Here, an old statue leans slightly to one side, its face worn smooth by centuries of wind and rain. You do not know who it once was, a king, a scholar, perhaps a hero. But it does not matter, because the stone is no longer just a monument to a person. It has become a monument to time. And time is the truest empire of all. You keep moving. Every step feels like crossing through layers of history, footprints over footprints, years pressed one over the other like pages in a book too heavy to close. And as you walk, you see something else. In the shadow of these fallen towers, small lights flicker, not torches, but homes. Families have returned to live where once only ghosts lingered. They cook meals over quiet fires. They trade stories instead of gold. They do not rebuild the old world. They build a new one out of what remains. And suddenly, you see it clearly. This is the turning of empires. The fall of one is not a void. It is soil. And from that soil, something different grows. You remember the stars you saw on the last night, ancient and unchanging. Empires, by contrast, are brief sparks. But both belong to the same sky. Both are part of the same vast rhythm, the slow breathing of the universe itself. You touch the stones of a wall as you pass. They are cold but solid. They have endured famine, ash, and silence, and yet they are still here. Perhaps they will be here long after you are gone, and strangely, that thought soothes you, because if the world can crumble and still give rise to new beginnings, then perhaps nothing is. Ever truly lost, you take one last look at the city. Its ruins are not only a reminder of what has passed, they are proof of what comes next. You turn toward the horizon, where the sky is beginning to pale, a thin light pushing through the ash. The world is changing again, slowly, quietly. You walk on, carrying a question with you, as soft and certain as the dawn. If even empires must sleep and wake, what else, buried deep in the earth or in the human heart, is waiting to rise? You sit by a fire that burns low but steady. The wood is damp, the air still heavy with the breath of a long winter, but the flames hold on. Their glow paints the faces around you, tired, hollow-cheeked, but not without light. Each person here carries a story. They tell it not with many words, but with the quiet rhythm of living. You watch as a woman passes a small piece of bread to the child at her side. The child tears it in half and gives a part to someone else. No one measures these gifts. They are not tallied or recorded. They move like the fire's warmth, passed from one person to another until, somehow, everyone has just enough. This, you realize, is what survival looks like. It is not the heroic struggle sung about in grand tales. It is smaller, softer, the way a single ember refuses to go out, even in the wind. You breathe deeply and let the air settle in your lungs. Here, in the shadow of famine and broken empires, you begin to notice something else. Survival has a pattern. It is almost mathematical. One person shares a spark of food, another gives shelter, another a story to fill the silence. These small exchanges ripple outward, creating something larger than any single act. It is a kind of quiet physics. Heat moves from the fire into your cold hands. Calories from a scrap of bread move into a body that has gone too long without them. Even words, soft, slow words, move like currents, carrying comfort from one mind into another. In this way, survival is not just endurance. It is connection. You look at the faces around you, and you see that connection in their eyes. Hunger may hollow the body, but kindness fills the space it leaves behind. In the silence between sentences, you hear it, the soft, steady rhythm of humans choosing to keep each other alive. You think of the science you once learned, how in the frozen stretches of the world, animals huddle close not only for warmth, but because their lives depend on it. Even the smallest creatures, from bees to penguins, know this. Survival is a shared equation. Alone, the cold wins. Together, bodies create heat enough to last the night. The same rule holds here. An old man stirs the fire, and sparks rise like tiny stars. He says nothing, but his gesture is a lesson. Keep the flame alive, and it will keep you alive. That is the only bargain nature ever makes. You lean back, feeling the ground beneath you, solid, unyielding, ancient. It has carried countless winters before this one. The earth does not rush. It waits. And so do you. Around the fire, stories begin to unfold. A woman speaks of the days when the sky was still bright and fields yielded grain without struggle. Another tells of walking for miles through snow to find a single handful of berries. There, voices rise and fall like waves, carrying fragments of a world that no longer exists. And yet, in the telling, it is kept alive. You realize that survival is not only about the body. It is also about memory. A shared story is a kind of food. It feeds the mind when the world outside feels empty. Even in famine, even in the ashes of lost cities, people pass these invisible meals to one another. And somehow, it is enough. You think of the human body. how it rations energy, slowing its own fires to conserve what little remains. You think of how the heart continues beating, even when the rest of the world has gone still. There is beauty in this stubbornness, the way life clings to itself. Refusing to vanish, the fire crackles softly. Someone adds another piece of wood, though it is barely larger than a branch. Still, the flames rise a little higher, their light brushing against the night like a hand against a closed door. You understand. Now, this is the mathematics of survival. One spark becomes a fire. One fire becomes a circle of warmth. One circle becomes a place where hope can sit down and rest for a while. And hope, you think, might be the rarest fuel of all. The people around you do not speak of tomorrow. They do not count the days or plan for a future too far away to touch. They live here in this single night, in this small ring of warmth. They do not fight against the vastness of the cold. They simply refuse to let it win, and maybe that is enough. You close your eyes and listen to the wind outside the circle. It is still there, sharp, endless, and unfeeling. But inside, there is a different kind of weather. Here, the air is warm. Here, voices hum like low, steady music. Here, the world is reduced to something small enough to hold in your hands. And it is in that smallness that survival becomes possible. You think of the next dawn. It will be pale and quiet, as it always is in this year of ash. But it will come. It always comes. And when it does, the fire will still be burning, and the people will still be here, holding on, not just for themselves, but for each other. You open your eyes and watch the flames. Their light flickers against faces that look both tired and unbreakable. It is in this moment that you understand something simple and vast. The world does not only endure through strength, it endures through gentleness, through hands that share, through voices that comfort, through fires, small but stubborn, burning in the dark. You lean closer to the warmth, and in that warmth, you feel it. The beginning of something that is not yet here, but is quietly on its way. Because from thee, lessons of survival, comes the first breath of rebuilding. And rebuilding always begins with a spark. You wake to a sky that is no longer gray. For months, the heavens have been cloaked in a heavy shroud, a world dimmed by ash, as though the sun itself had forgotten the way home. But now, through the thinnest seam of cloud, light breaks. Not bright, not fierce, but gentle. It spills over the horizon like a hand extended in peace. You step outside. The air feels different. There is still a chill, but beneath it, something else lingers. Warmth, subtle and patient, as if the earth is quietly exhaling after a long-held breath. And in that moment, you understand. This is how change begins. Not with sudden brilliance, not with trumpets or fire, but with a single ray of sunlight finding its way through the cracks. You walk across the land and see it everywhere. Tiny signs of the world remembering itself. Frost loosens its grip on the soil. The first buds, small and stubborn, push through ground that only yesterday seemed lifeless. You crouch to touch one. Its stem is fragile, yet it holds. Life, it seems, has been rehearsing this moment all along. You think of the science that explains this quiet return. The particles in the air, remnants of volcanic ash, are beginning to settle. The atmosphere clears little by little, allowing sunlight to reach the ground once more. What feels like hope is also physics, the earth resetting itself, as it has done countless times before. Even so, it feels like a miracle. You close your eyes and turn your face to the light. Your skin drinks it in greedily, the way plants do, a process you once learned to call photosynthesis. But today, it is simpler than any textbook. It is warmth. It is renewal. It is proof that nothing stays buried in shadow forever. As you walk further, you see others gathered outside their homes. Their faces, once pale and drawn by endless gray days, now soften. Children stretch out their hands as if they could hold the sun between their fingers. The world does not cheer. It exhales in that exhale. You hear the lesson of this long year. Darkness was never permanent. It was only a pause. You remember the fires around which people told their stories. You remember the shared bread, the quiet endurance, the mathematics of survival. All of it has led here, to this moment where the sky lifts and the earth, like a tired traveler, begins to rise to its feet. And yet dawn does not erase the night. You can still see the marks it has left behind. Barren fields, empty storehouses, lives thinned by hunger and grief. But even these scars are softened by the light. You understand now that survival is not about forgetting what has passed, but about carrying it forward, reshaped into wisdom. The sun climbs higher. You feel its warmth deep in your bones, and it reminds you of something simple. Every living thing is drawn to light. Plants bend toward it. Animals wake with it. Even you, weary from so many shadowed days, find yourself standing taller. And with this light comes movement. Streams that lay frozen begin to run again. Birds return, their wings stitching bright lines across the sky. The soil, once cold and unyielding, begins to soften, ready to cradle seeds. You think of how life responds to even the smallest shift in energy, how a few degrees of warmth can stir sleeping roots and summon green back to the world. It is not dramatic. It is not loud, but it is unstoppable. You kneel by the edge of a field and run your fingers through the soil. It feels damp, fertile, not yet abundant, but alive. This, you realize, is how the earth heals, layer by layer, breath by breath. The sun continues its slow climb, patient and steady. Its light no longer feels like a visitor. It feels like it has come home. You glance at the people nearby. They are already working, turning the soil, planting seeds, repairing what? The darkness left broken. There is no rush. There is only rhythm. As if, after so much stillness, the world has remembered how to move. You watch a child drop a seed into the earth and cover it gently. One seed, then another, and another. The act is small, but you know what it means. Every harvest begins this way, with faith so quiet, it looks almost like routine. You breathe in deeply and feel it. The quiet mathematics of renewal. The sunlight meets the soil. The soil meets the seed. The seed waits, and then one day it will rise. You realize in this simple equation that the world has already started again. The long shadow of the year 536 is not gone, but it has begun to thin. The memory of darkness will remain, but it will no longer be the only story the sky tells. And as the day stretches forward, you find yourself wondering what will grow in this new light. What will take root, not only in the soil, but in the hearts of those who endured. The thought is soft, but steady. Perhaps you think this is the true lesson of the dawn, not that it banishes the night, but that it makes the night meaningful, because only after the deepest dark can you truly feel the weight of light. You stand there for a long while, the sun warm on your skin, the earth beneath your feet, and the air rich with the scent of beginnings. The world is quiet, but not empty. It is full of small sounds, birdsong, footsteps, the low hum of life finding its way back. And you know, as surely as the sun climbs, that this is not the end. It is only the first morning. You take one last breath, deep and steady, and in that breath is a promise. What begins now will grow. And now, as our story gently fades, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending this moment with me. Your presence here means the world, and your support helps me create even more peaceful journeys. Just for you. If this helped, you rest, please consider liking, subscribing, or simply coming back tomorrow night. Until then, stay cozy, stay kind, and may your dreams tonight be soft, serene, and full of wonder. Good night, my friend. With warmth, David.